Breaking news, episode 11, the Unification Party.
Paused his campaign.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us that. We had to get
No, that's the
breaking
big
news.
breaking news. It's the big breaking news that we're
That's all
reporting
you,
here. No, it's
that's all
not
you know
breaking.
about?
Well, I know that supposedly, like again, like I've been saying in the last couple episodes about more people see Carney, the more he'll falter. It seems like there was a big hubbubaloo with some questioning from a reporter this week who was citing a Globe and Mail report. Did you hear anything about that happening? I guess I know you're not super with the microscope on the Canadian politics, but did you hear anything about the reporter was questioning him regarding his relationship with this Chinese organization? It's like a business community, Jiangsong community. It's an arm of the CCP, relatively, like most things.
I gotta be honest with you. I read every single day so many headlines, and there's at least one or two different ones a day about how much Carney is a snake or his company is killing tribesmen in Peru and chopping down the most precious trees in Colombia
Well, you
and
must
whatever.
not
So
be
I
on
mean,
Global News or CTV.
no, I am seeing so I'm just saying, as I know that I know there's a steady stream of controversies that him not paying his fair share of taxes, offshoring his taxes and
Well,
things
I
of that
have
nature.
a clip that I'd like to share with you, and the prominence, the provenance of this clip is it's the reporter who wrote. Okay, so Carney, basically the whole thing started when the reporter asked him about the reports in the Globe and Mail, and then Carney snapped back and was like something along the lines of like, "Can't believe everything you read in the Globe and Mail. You know, you better check your sources. That absolutely didn't happen." And then CBC on like Power and Politics or one of their shows had the Globe and Mail reporter who wrote the article on, and I'd just like to show you that. It was for like, I was kind of shocked to see the CBC like basically have like a negative guy on to talk about Carney, and it wasn't even, he's not even like raw negative, but it's just usually they're carrying water, especially if he's going to give them a raise and Pierre's going to cut them. I'm surprised that they would be so what I would call neutral. You have a look and tell me what you think. Okay.
Well, first of all, we never said that there was a meeting. We said that this organization met him, and according to their website, they had an in-depth discussion.
He wrote the article.
That's the story. And which, by the way, that wasn't the focus of the story. The focus of the story is on the Liberal candidate in the riding that was replaced by another Liberal
Etobicoke
MP.
North.
Etobicoke,
I think,
I know it's
Union Market.
Markham Union.
Yeah, sorry. My apologies.
And this man named Peter Yen is a former deputy police chief. We checked him out, and he is being connected to Beijing-friendly organizations, including this organization who met with Mr. Carney. They echo and repeat the lines of the Chinese Communist Party. The other groups that Mr. Yen met with were the Chinese Freemasons, which talks about annexation of Taiwan. He's been celebrated and had many meetings with the Chinese consulate, which we now know from the public inquiry into foreign interference that the Chinese consulate is the key organizing body for all of these proxy groups to try to influence politicians. So that was the point of our story. But here's the thing I want to talk, and I'm glad Mr. Carney raised this, because here's the reason why. This same group, if you go to the website, after they met him, they wrote a laudatory thing about how great Mark Carney is, how great he is and going to improve Chinese-Canadian relations. So what did we find out on Monday? The site committee, which looks into federal election interference, said that WeChat and China has been trying to mold public opinion involving Mr. Carney. What are they molding? Nice things about him, what a tough guy is, how he can take on the Americans. So I guess the point here is, has anybody learned anything from the foreign interference inquiry or not? This is the strategy of China to try to influence no matter which political party you are. And rather than trying to attack the media, why doesn't he just say, look, we have to do a better job of dealing with these kind of organizations that are trying to influence politicians?
So I thought that was pretty, like if the CBC did more stuff like that, like had more of a different opinions on, I might listen to CBC more. I was pretty shocked to see that they would have that opinion on their airwaves. But again, I don't watch them every day. So
No.
maybe they do, but I don't think so.
Well, no, I will say
I used to.
there's a couple of their people that I watch, and I would say that um, with the exception of a few words like we've spoken of the past and catchphrases, the list of like the facts that nobody would dispute. Like they do a good job of summarizing. Like I'd watch a lot of CBC clip shorts, 10 minutes long, discussing, the impact of tariffs on Greenland. And then the guy lays out very succinct, sensible, this is the facts and this is what happened. So I do think I prefer the CBC's style over, the States, where
Well,
it's ridiculous. And again, understanding completely that there is a slant or whatever, but
no, and again, I would expect them to have it, knowing the one
sure,
guy's going to cut your budget and the other guy's going to increase it. I'm a
fair
capitalist.
enough.
Like I get it. You would be foolish. However, I just think like that's like the word on the street is that was like almost like a bit of like a like a stance against Carney from the mainstream media, like because the way he reacted to that reporter and like kind of just like caught, and then he got caught in an outright lie. Like if you go to that place's website, like they took the site down where they talk about Carney on their community board and all that, and I think the Liberal Party even made a comment about it, which whatever. But like after all that, like this week, he had to put his campaign on hold, so that just doesn't bode well. One other positive point for people who are hoping the Conservatives don't win the election. I had a fella I was listening to today talking about the polls going on, and if you look at the sampling of the polls, a lot of the polls are heavily favored to the over 55 category, which would make sense to like who's going to probably have the time to reply to a poll or whatever, right? Like that. So if you account for that, there's a lot of ridings that look a little bit more neck and neck, to say the least, and so much more than like maybe Liberals by 10. Like if you account for the age and the certain demographics, like in it, it's more in favor for the Conservatives. And I've always said for years, and maybe this is me just being wrong, but like Conservatives by nature just don't want to talk to you. Like we just want to be left. They just want to be left alone. Like they don't want to tell people their opinion. That's why they're conservative. So like that's just because I've also never been polled. But maybe it's not. Maybe that's just my luck. But you do
Would
hear
you
that a lot.
answer? Would you answer?
I do
Oh, wait
survey
a minute.
feedback.
Whoa. I was about to say I've never been polled, but I did receive a couple of texts this asking me if I would support Pierre, yes or no,
You
or
must have put your
something.
phone number in something.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think I've got something in my phone from Olivia Chow when she was running for mayor.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. No, and I'm not saying like it is what it is. I know there's sometimes like I've been jokingly reacting to some polls, like not lately, but in general. But I do think
But sorry, but in response to the point you were making, the conservatives don't bother with that and just want to be left alone.
by nature, on average.
By nature, that's right, and I'm definitely more conservative, and I didn't answer either of those polls, so I deleted
The
them
province sent me
anyway.
a poll about my health care, and I was like, you have my information. What did I
Yeah,
give it to the doctor for that? Like, yeah, it's in the garbage. Like,
yeah.
but I mean, yeah, so I don't know. That's just something I thought that was like of interest. And then you throw like, so basically it looks like there's a lot of similarities to like the Biden campaign and Carney, where he's like polling looks way too good to be true and he's hiding in the basement. Like like, well, I don't know why, like you have arguably the shortest campaign time legally possible by Canadian law and you're taking 3 days off. It clearly looks like damage control in my mind, where it's kind of like, and I
So,
will say his Twitter account wasn't taking the days off. He's still whoever's on his Twitter account is still spouting out stuff right now, even though he's off.
so when did this 3-day suspension of his campaign start?
I think today, so I think it was like the
Okay,
weekend. Maybe it was Thursday. Don't quote me, but
I
yeah,
I won't.
it's just but and it's funny too again, right? If even if you go like to Global or CTV, like they ain't no mention of that. Both of those top of them is like the border, and like Canadians aren't going. and there's a reason
Yeah,
why.
I have noticed that's it's kind of I was watching this guy. It was funny. He caught my ear because his name was Bob and he was from Coburg, and that's where I'm from. So
Yeah.
it caught my attention, and they were interviewing him. And what I thought was funny, I don't know if you believe in Freudian slips or the concept of your mind says what you really are talking about, but by accident. But he went in and he was being questioned by the CBC, and this would be one of the ones CBC shows you wouldn't want to watch because it's so ridiculous. Like, Trump is so evil. Bob, are you ever going to the States again? And he's like, I swear on my grave and my grandmother's grave that I will never step foot. And I've been to the Florida for 1,000 years every year, our family. And it was like ridiculous. And then at the very end, he goes, so is that it? Could you ever heal? Was there anything the States could ever do that would get you back there? And then old Bob from Coburg says, well, once there's change in the economy, once there's change and Trump's no longer. So I just thought it was funny because remember last week I told you, I said that all the people that I'm talking to, they say the reason they're not going to the States is because of this
The dollar.
Trump business.
No, it's the dollar.
But they're all on after that about the money. And I even thought it was funny after this guy spills his vitriol, he's the slip of the tongue at the end. His last statement is a misspeak. And he goes, I won't go back there until the Trump is out of office.
Yeah, well, and it's so true. And I think what it boils down to is for like the working class Canadians, it's coming down to the low dollar, and like you barely have enough as it is to buy around. So like whatever little savings you were getting there, you could whatever. And I think it's more like the champagne socialist class or like the retired Bob classes who can afford to like whatever go somewhere else. If like he's going to Florida if he was going to Florida for 1,000 years, so obviously he vacationed in there a lot. Even by my growing up experience living in Southern Ontario, like the people who went to Florida yearly were doing all right. You were doing, you know what I mean? You were like,
Well, he did slip. It was a timeshare that he goes to. So
sure, but even those people, like that's still money. You can take 2 weeks off work, whatever, right?
absolutely get
So
there back.
yeah, but it is interesting. It does seem to it seems to be like really ramping up right now with the trade stuff with more like China. Like in the international news, you don't ever really hear Canada mentioned at all. Aside from that, like when us and China were the only ones getting retaliatory tariffed, and on that one graph, people were like, "Oh, look who's with China over there."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
And Mexico, the three of us.
where's okay? Well, I just
Yeah,
think like
I actually did a look up on this. It's not just, it's still the whole world. But this
everyone's
is
got 25. Everyone's got
no,
25.
no. I decided to check this because it's so confusing and they're constantly changing. So as of more or less right now, summary is there's a 10% baseline tariff on all imports for most U.S. trading partners for 90 days to facilitate negotiations, but the 10% is still in place.
One
And
thing I
then
want to correct. Sorry, you were going to say. Sorry, I thought you were.
I got a lot more to say. So
Can I just
just hold
clarify one thing
still.
from last week? Remember
Yeah,
that
sure.
the island with the penguins and like it was like haha the funny bit I shared? Supposedly that was
Yes.
them covering their butts for like countries using that domain as a legal workaround. So it
Yeah,
was like,
I've
oh
heard
okay,
that said as
okay.
well.
It wasn't
Okay,
okay,
so
sorry, keep
just wait.
going.
Let's do this tariff thing. So 10% baseline tariff. Then there's still reciprocal tariffs ranging from 10% to 50% in place, or they're delayed for many countries. So a lot of the countries were delayed. China and Hong Kong, they still have their 125%. Canada still has 10% on the energy products and certain products that don't qualify under CUSMA. 25% tariff on other non-CUSMA compliant goods. Then Mexico is similar to Canada with 10% on tariff on potash and 25% on CUSMA compliant goods. And then there's still a bunch of product specific tariffs on Canada, Mexico, steel and aluminum auto imports. Anyways, boring stuff. But my point is, I think it's interesting that we get so overloaded with these numbers. Like, I don't know if this is a feature of Trump's genius or a just a byproduct of chaos, like he's accused of constantly. But either way, like the world is celebrating, but there's still, like, I just read a pretty hefty list of tariffs that are still in place, but they're celebrating the 90-day pause and things are
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good.
He gave you the double whammy. He was like, you got to give me your mattress and you got to sleep outside. And then it was like, all right, you just got to give me your mattress. So you're like, okay, please take my bed. Just take my bed. like,
Well, that's what it seems like. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of
well,
interesting. But I would
it,
say it was interesting. They've got 40% back to this Bob from Coburg and his ilk. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are against it for the national pride reasons. And I did want to say, like, I tip my hat to, like, whether we could argue that the effort is futile long run. But I was listening to, some of the impacts already. They're talking about in some of like tax dependent states, like 7% decrease in sales tax just based on the amount of Canadians not. And then when you think like most people, we're in inflationary times, and if you have a municipality or a county that's getting a decrease of 7% in
it's
their
the police station.
absolutely. So we're laying out some of these, as much as maybe I will point fingers at myself and say I scoff at the impact of these things when you go like, oh, $2 billion impact on the American economy versus 600 billion raised in tariffs. Well, and I remember saying when I said that, but sure, certainly there will be some areas specifically that will be targeted. But you get enough of those areas targeted, that swings a state, and then the state government swings this and swings a legislator and legislate. Then then maybe a congressperson, and then the midterms are lost. And whether or not Trump has the big long-term plan that's great or not, he doesn't get to bring it to play because it'll be constantly shut down if there's a switch in one of the chambers in the midterms.
Well,
So
one thing I will say, I think this just hit me though. Like after we have our election, regardless who wins, they're going to sit down with the United States and iron out a couple more things to give what the market likes, which is certainty. Regardless, like hopefully it's more certainty for why companies might want to invest in Canada that aren't affiliated with Mark Carney. But if whoever it is, right? So that'll be good regardless. But yeah, it'll be like, and it'll be so nice, right? Because we have such a dark cloud over us for like a month of like Trump just throwing down like proverbial lightning bolts. So like once that goes away, we'll just be like so happy, like okay, whatever it is, like cool.
well, I mean, I mean, it is a valid argument. You'll see, like the critics' argument would say he's sort of going back on Kuzma. He's going back on other agreements. Why would we trust him if we negotiate a new agreement?
If I
And I
may,
mean, it
Kuzma.
doesn't matter if that's
No,
true.
no, no. I always thought I guess mostly saw American commentating on it, so I always called it the USMCA.
They're the
But
same
like
thing. I just
I
remember
know it is, but
Kuzma.
Canada calls it Kuzma. America calls it USMCA, and I was just kind of like, what are we getting into semantics here for? Like, you've never seen that with a treaty before, where they're two different abbreviations for it, the same thing. But did you see regarding Mark Carney, left field? This just came into my back of my head. I know you said you don't pay too much attention, but do you remember last week when I talked about his housing plan involved starting a new agency and investing $25 billion into this and that to prefab homes and stuff like that?
Yes.
Well, there was another report this week about Brookfield owning a whole bunch of like investing in this like $1 billion or $2 billion in the last little bit into this like prefab home company and to this like heat pump company. So
Yeah, I'm
it's kind of
familiar with
looking
the
like,
heat pump.
pardon?
I'm familiar with the heat pump scandal.
So that just kind of like
Scandal.
it's
Yeah.
been a week of kind of like more skeletons coming out for Carney. Like I forgot to mention that one earlier, so I'm sorry for my ADHD there, changing us off the
No,
Kuzma talk. But
no, it's all good. It's not. There's no rules here in the Unification Party podcast.
you were talking about
We
the trade. Have you seen anything to do with China? Because it just seems to be the hottest point right now.
No, but that's what I said last week. Like my ultimate conclusion when he put the things out, this was ultimately, bigger picture. It's line in the sand, not let's not go and fight each other with bombs, but we've got to sort some stuff out. And and Trump's the guy that's doing it. So this
Mm-hmm.
is all China. And I have looked. I mean, again, the numbers coming fast and furious, 124. Once you get above 100%, 500, 1,000%, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
difference, right? It's the trade's done. I'm looking at videos out of China where they're showing empty factories, but I mean, all you'd have to do is have a camera and have everybody be on lunch, and you could make the same video. So it doesn't mean anything. And then they show like, oh, this is our stock. It's packed up already because of the trade threats, and it's some Chinese person walking with a camera in what, as far as I know, could be what that store dock room looks like 365 days of the year while their business is booming. Like, I have no point of reference that this is usually neat and tidy, but today we're so backed up on orders that are no longer going to the States, and we're laying everybody off. I mean, how would I know? It's just a picture. So it's hard to get any information but I mean, they say that the trade imbalances, you've got 5 times as much stuff coming into the consumer buying culture of America versus one going out. And in a sustained trade war between the two, there's a lot of people who could put their money on the United States, because for the most part, the stuff in the United States would be discretionary, not necessarily inflationary. You can
That's
choose not to. You can choose
good.
not to buy that flat screen this time around from China, but you could get one from South Korea or something.
Or maybe you choose to just do dishes at the barbecue and not buy the plastic forks, whatever, right? Like, and I think like the little bit I've seen on it, it seems like, and it would make sense if you kind of think about it, like it was going to hurt China more because they're not going to have a market. Yeah, I think it's only like 8% or 9% of their export goes to America, but the volume, like the consistency and they can't just make up for that. Like, sure, you can ship some stuff to Spain and Italy or wherever and stuff like that, but it's going to hurt them more. And Americans can just, like, I would say, tighten their belts as they build up manufacturing, right? And then maybe make it a little bit fairer. But yeah,
Well, I mean, and that's what everybody's trying to guess. Like, what would be the time frame of to ramp up imports, exports, sourcing new materials? I mean, everything seems possible over,
well,
like, if you look at a 10-year window, but
for
it's
sure.
the
I
critical
just
minerals next week, and he needs to get voted in another 18 months to keep with his plans if he wants to have any real
Mister,
effective change. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, I can't see a world where there's no tariffs, like, because, like, in China, like, not only has there been rampant intellectual property theft by the Chinese against foreign companies, where they've started like offspring companies basically just mimicking your product. But like, if like Ford and Honda, I think Japan would have a lot to gain from no tariffs. Like, if they could sell a Toyota without 100% tariff on it, like, no one would ever buy a Chinese car ever again. Like, you would just be like, they're not like, but so I don't know. It's never going to go down to zero. Is all I'm saying with that one. But like, I showed you that picture earlier of the Mao Ning, the she's the spokesperson for the foreign affairs of China, and she was getting pretty spicy. Like, she was tweeting some memes, but she was also tweeting like Ronald Reagan quotes. Like, she's tweeting Ronald Reagan segments talking about tariffs and Mao Zedong talking about fighting till the end. So I don't know. I feel like if anyone can handle it, it'll be Trump. And I don't see, like, the fact that I feel like China's been exploiting the West for over 30 years with unfair trade practices, more or less. I feel like nothing but a win can come from this. Like, I don't know, call me crazy, but I feel like, wasn't Nortel stolen by, like, and started Huawei pretty much? Like, I'm pretty sure.
Well, but even forget all, even the big stuff, or like, we just know, like Kevin O'Leary was talking about, any product that sells online, there's a copycat like 2 seconds later.
Well, the one guy we
You
listen to, he
know,
talks about his book. He writes books, and there'll be a copy book or 12 copy books that'll just
yeah,
mirror
in an
his book.
hour. Yeah,
Yeah.
in an hour after.
And that's almost
So,
on
well,
to,
I
like,
mean, but that's
that's
why
almost
we
on
we were.
Amazon, where you're kind of like, Jeff, what are you doing there, bud? Why are you
It's a,
propping up all
it,
these bootleggers?
it's across the board, and I mean, that's China's model. So I guess, or that's what we're told is China's model. Where,
Well, that's what we see.
yeah,
And again, this is the Chinese Communist Party, not the Chinese people. It just is what it
yeah,
is. And again, like similar, like Trump says, it's like I'm not mad at them. Like our people were stupid and like made bad deals. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it because change needs to happen. But at the end of the day, like there was even that report I think I mentioned on the last episode from that American general that like over 100 important parts for the military of the United States come from China. So like hands down, like you need to start making that. Whatever that is, figure that out and make it in Cincinnati. Like you can't and then take it one step at a time. Like, maybe we don't need to start making forks and knives and spoons, but maybe if the price goes up on those, people will start doing dishes. Like I'm talking about the
For
plastic
sure.
for parties, like just
Yeah,
garbage
yeah.
in the dollar store.
No, but I mean, we make that all here. Like I know for a fact because I buy some of that stuff and 100% Canadian sourced.
There you go. Yeah.
So I know it's not coming from the States because I know that our supplier had made it clear to us a list of tariffed and non-tariff goods, and my inexpensive plastic cutlery is tariff-free, made in Canada.
You're a
So
friggin' patriot there, bro. One
100%,
calorie cent at a time. You're saving the country. Elbows up.
100%. Um, but I was going to say before, I'm complimenting the whether it's misguided or not, the Canadian resolve to make a real difference down south. But you could argue that some of it is due to the dollar, but I think this has been some of these things are a flashpoint, right? So it's the economy, it's the dollar,
Storm.
it's deteriorate, yeah, and then it all gets sort of funneled under a nice, neat package of anti-Trumpism or whatever.
Well, in
But
Florida, like, I mean, I did see the articles that you're talking about with the snowbirds, like selling at
yeah,
a higher
they're
clip. But
all
like,
leaving.
they have you. I don't know about you, but the last 2 years, like, out of Florida, I think the only house insurance provider in Florida is the state of Florida. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So like I know what I'm all that is to say, I know that costs have been going up to like own that rental or own that whatever down there because insurance has become a major problem with the hurricanes and the insurance companies leaving. So I could see that like again, all encompassing. It's not just one thing, but like that's been a huge issue that I've heard a few people talk about for the last few
Well,
years.
they were saying that they were talking about they were comparing visits versus this last year to the States, and I don't know, certain markets, certain parameters, but whatever. But what was interesting is the chart they showed was already showing a decline, like way before there was ever talks of tariffs or Canada becoming a 51st state. The person reporting on the chart made no mention of that, but it was pretty clear there that there were dramatic decreases happening already with regards to travel and whatever. And again, I'm sure this solidarity is creating an economic impact south of the border, but I wonder how long it can be sustained. Will it be sustained? And what it would take to restore it? Like, is it an apology and come on down, or is this is going to stick around for a long time?
Well, I think it's going to stick around regardless as long as Trump's in power and the government of Canada is paying media companies.
But why? But so why would it change if JD Vance takes the place next, and for the next 12 years you have a Republican government?
If you have those two things still going on, like regardless, if there's anybody right of Mao Zedong, the government of the Canadian media is going to be on their case and make them look bad. So if the Canadian media isn't funded by the government of Canada and it's in the private market, you might get the one outlet that does that, and maybe there'd be a more free discourse of ideas. But as long as the subsidization is coming from the state of Canada, you're always going to get that tinge because like that's just how it is in Canada. Like the part of Canadian pride and Canadian culture is like we're not American. We're polite. Like we play hockey. We're people like us in the world. We put a Canadian flag on our backpack. Like we're not rude Americans. When it's like we're Americans. Like we're North Americans. We're all pretty much the same. Like not much of a difference. Bit more of a love for gun culture down there and freedom, and a little bit more of a love for the Queen and tea up here. But otherwise, we're the same people, in my opinion.
So you still have hope for a conservative win of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. I don't believe polls at all. Like I wish I did. Like I've just been so mind boggled with polls like for years. Like even before I kind of was more politically active and paying attention. But I think they're polling the wrong people. I think like most people aren't disagreeing with their lying eyes. One thing that does scare me though is like everybody that like left Canada, like which is on the rise, definitely would not have been voting for the Liberal Party. So we are losing like voters, but still, I think most people like aren't going to disagree with their lying eyes. They're going to see crime going up. They're going to see, that story that happened to their friend who was assaulted or their dad's friend who was driving Uber. You know what I mean? Like real life stuff. Like life's only gotten better for government workers in the last 8 years in this country.
Well, I was watching something that was talking about that only like it's 10% of the population that is severely affected or even really affected by major stock market changes and whatnot.
8%.
So
Yeah. Like most people don't, we're mainstream.
yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of noise from a small part of the population potentially. So no,
But
I'm
no,
optimistic. I'm glad you're optimistic because I guess I know you, like I said, you get in the part of the world that I'm in and in the age demographic that I interact with, they are all loving, like absolutely loving Carney. He's the second coming of the Lord himself, and he's going to
He's
fix.
a painting, don't you know?
He's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
So I just every day walk around in like a glazed donut, like can't believe my ears, but maybe I'm the crazy one.
Well, what's going to win the election for the Conservatives, if they win anything, is going to be the young man vote that doesn't vote. Like the under 32 male vote, who typically is like, maybe you get 25%, 20% of them. If you could get those numbers like into the high 40s, it should be all right. But again, like you are right. Like I know the polls say what they are, and I know the over 55s are like in love with Carney, and like there's no real winning those people over. But I also think that those people are insulated. You know what I mean? Like they don't go out downtown and see how it's changed. They don't go out to look for a job and see how it's changed. They don't, you know what I mean? They do go out, like they're not all shut-ins, but their interaction with society is very surface level. The people who actually are in it, trying to build things and work, do things, they see that there's issues that need to be addressed.
I unfortunately think that it's going to take one more liberal majority to
Burn it all down.
disaster to motivate the youngsters to even care. Like I know the few young people I do talk to. Again, I know these are just my experiences. That's why I'm prefacing them this way.
Yeah, anecdotal, but it's good.
Yeah, but they're like, they don't know who's running, don't know what, don't like, couldn't care less. Like, there's no way they're going voting. Maybe,
Fair.
but I doubt it.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's where it's almost like maybe Pierre needs to get out and do a Joe Rogan. Like,
You know how I feel. I think he should have gone full. He should have gone for the whole common sense. Again, taken the comparisons and just went with it. I think maybe he would have had a chance, but
well, hold on. For starters, the boat hasn't even landed on the beach yet. We're not all dead. Wouldn't have had a chance. You talk about it like we're burying the bodies. We haven't even got to the beach. Like
I don't know. I've been brainwashed by the media. The headlines have got me. I'm convinced that it's a nightmare for.
I think it's all true.
I agree with you in part with the polls that there is obviously
there is some information to be gleaned from them. I'm not disregarding it, but again, like I don't know. I obviously I have a strong. My opinion is what it is, and I'm feeling what I'm feeling. But I do agree with you. Like I don't think it's out of the question Carney wins. But I also don't think it's to the level like the certainty with which they're predicting it now. You're just like, okay, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I guess I don't know. I think the one thing that I think is happening too, like I noticed there seemed to be with the polls this week. Not only were they gauging too many old people and not enough of this and that, but like it looks like Carney's losing young women a little bit, and they're going kind of the NDP, and he's losing older men, and they're going Bloc, like in Quebec. So like all across Canada, he's losing a couple of the young women to the NDP, and I think that goes to what I was saying, which is the more you see this man speak, you'll just be unimpressed. You'll like look at this resume that you're like resume, and then you look at the man, and you'll be like, oh, you're right. I guess people are just people. Like this guy's not impressive. Like what? So they're smart that they pause their campaign for 3 days, maybe if he is such a.
What would you hypothesize the direction he's, from what you've seen, if he's pausing? Just take a guess. What you think he's pausing? What he needs to fix? If
He needs to have an answer to his connections to China. He needs to be able to say it because they're there, they're evident. And it's not even like Alex Jones is talking about it. Like, it's out there. I think it's Evan Solomon's done a lot of reporting on it. Like, Globe and Mail's talking about it. And he needs to be able to, like, atone. Like, if he's got something to hide, which it looks like he's got something to hide. Like, whether it's the connection with where Brookfield's got its tentacles or who loaned what money. He's got to be able to talk about that stuff without being shamed. Like, and I feel like.
But does your average, okay, so I think of my parents, right? They're old. And then I think of most of the people in, like, what is it? Do most of the people associate doing business with China as scary and bad? Does your average old person think that?
They're more afraid of Red China than anybody.
You think so?
I don't. I think they've been programmed to hate the Russians. But I
Yeah.
think number 2 used to be China, right behind the Russians. So he's got to reignite that. I also think most people have been disconnected. And like China's got a lot of good press in the last 30 years. Like they've done a lot of good things. But I think that's over highlighted. Like nobody's really seen much of the bad. And I'm not saying like you got to go.
No, but I'm
like,
just
interview a
saying the bit,
Uyghur.
like I've never once heard through this whole thing someone in the street talking about the canola oil tariff that China put on, right? I never once heard that, but I heard like
People from Saskatchewan don't go
oh
to your city.
that Trump. But I bet you even in Saskatchewan, I bet you that I'm not saying okay, so maybe somebody would have said it there, but they still would be saying like, "Ooh, that Trump first." It wouldn't be like, "Oh, Mr. Ping over there, he got me with those canola tariffs." I mean, just saying in general, like, does Carney's ties to China, does it have the same
Well,
gut
he's just got to be
effect
able
on
to
these
talk about it.
people?
Like, why did you take the loan from the bank from China, like the state-owned bank? Like, why did your company take that big loan? Is that loan going to impact how you do your job as the leader of this country when interacting with that country? You just got to be able to answer that question.
Yeah, but I mean, also, I will say any person who is involved with a company that handles billions of dollars and himself would,
I agree.
it's
You're going to take money from
impossible
lots
for
of different
him.
people. But my
No, but it's
point,
impossible for him not to have conflict of interest about everything.
well, and then maybe he's not the man for the job. I actually heard a pretty good case for Carney. Why he's running for prime minister is because like he was the poster child for ESG and DEI and like carbon capture and all that. And that kind of is all going away with like the hedge funds kind of steering clear of it, like BlackRock and State Street and those guys. And like, so basically he was kind of out of a job because this stuff's kind of going the way of the dodo. And this was like, he just needed something to do. So he figured, hey, I'll go over to that back. I think I might have heard Peterson hypothecate that. But I thought it was kind of an interesting hypothecation. I also, on a funny note today that you brought up Saskatchewan, apparently they're and polls, they're so great, but there was polls done recently, and if Carney wins, Saskatchewan's actually more likely than Alberta to secede. Like as far as support in the province, it's higher in Saskatchewan than it is in Alberta. And a lot of the times, there's talks
I
of
saw
those guys joining
30%.
up.
Yeah, I saw 30% in the one article that I was seeing.
I think I saw
30% of
44
people.
for Saskatchewan.
That's crazy.
Yeah, what you think about it, like, and imagine that, like you just brought up, like your national news. Like, what are we like? Does nobody care about us? Is it all just Toronto that matters? Like, I would feel a little upset if I was Saskatchewan. Like, where's my respect? Nobody cares about us. Like, you know, like an auto worker loses his job, and like they just closed down that plant in Ingersoll. Did you see that?
Yeah,
And
I did see
everybody had
that.
something to say about that, which they
Okay,
should.
but I want to go before we, there's plants, border plant, both sides of the border. Again, I wonder if it's the same thing. It's like, if you've been a factory for any length of time and you've been needing to make some moves, right?
Right.
Like,
It's all encompassing.
is this because of the
Encompassing.
Yeah, like it's really hard to extract which of these moves are direct results of the tariffs and what are just the result of like, oh, it's bad news, so let's all jump
Well,
on this
think
bad
about it like
news.
this: if you were GM or Stellantis or Ford, and you had $5 billion to invest in upgrading the plants this year, and you look at your plants in Ontario and you see Trudeau and Doug Ford up there arguing and coming up with new taxes, or you see even if you know whatever's going on in the states, whether it's Biden and Whitmer in Michigan, but they're still making Doug Ford and Trudeau, you know what I mean, not look that good by comparison. Like I would hazard a guess that the big three guys have invested more upgrades in America and the American plants in the last few years. Now this is just me pulling it out of my butt, but
No,
like I
well,
would.
I mean, that echoes. I did see one report that said that 37% of automakers had had, I don't know if it was framed as determined, are going to, or are in the process of, but intentions pointing toward 37% of them increasing their manufacturing base in the United States. So it's 37% of all of those automakers. So, I mean, that's pretty good
No, and
if
that's what I'm
that's the
saying. Like, so
goal.
when it comes to the move now with the close down, I would hazard a guess, like you're saying, how long has this been on the thought process? And I bet you it's been a while because there's been issues with the auto workers union and stuff like that in Southern Ontario for years, and like you drive by those plants, like me and you used to live in those areas, like those plants don't look like they've changed too much since I was a little boy driving past those plants. Like I'm sure they have, that's how plants work inside, but like they don't look state of the art by any stretch of the imagination. It's the same plant there in Oakville and that I used to
Yeah,
drive past a bunch. So,
absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know if these are just, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. If it's as again, right now it's down to, I mean, all the news is talking about is China and the United States. I mean, it is quite comical that Canada and Mexico were still in this group of tariff or more tariff group than your average. But that's the way it is, I guess. What does that mean? Why are we so? I mean, I guess he really has a beef with this Kuzma.
USMCA, that's probably his
Yeah,
number one beef right there. I bet you that we call it Kuzma probably added another 10% we don't even know about.
you might be right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that's all
Well,
about.
yes, there's more like if he is trying to do what he's trying to do, which is make America great again and bring back the middle class, like if you're gonna like there's nothing wrong with like tightening up relations with us because like you can't have like Canada and Mexico going to shit as you fix your you don't want like you're not putting in a new pool if your neighbor's like lighting the sunroom on fire, you know what I mean, like you got
Uh,
to keep the neighborhood
but
going.
do you really think that? Um, I mean, it seems to me. I mean, I understand we've talked about before that Trump is like he gets your attention, boom, big hammer. Has would like to think that he's a smart enough guy, or at least tactful enough person to know that, and he hears. I'm sure someone's advising him that the response to his plans in Canada are like, does he just shrug us off as a bunch of crybabies and I'll fix that later? Or did he not take into account the retaliatory nature of like, forget even being so personal about Canadians, but just across the board? Did he like miss that it could galvanize countries? Or is the gamble, he's such a gambler that he's like, ooh, I knew the 75 countries would cave and I'm going to create this new alliance of
Well, what I heard happened. I heard like from more of an economic angle, and again, I'm not a doctor or an economist, but it seemed
But
like
you play one.
what I'm about to play one here on YouTube. It seemed like don't tell Douglas Murray; he'll get mad because I'm not an expert. But um, what Trump did caused chaos in the bond market, and the whole point of like one of the major points to do this was to like lower the interest rates on the bond, so that when U.S. goes to renegotiate debt here shortly coming up, they'll get a better rate and save some money on it. And that did not happen with what he did. It looked like there was just chaos going on, and I don't know exactly what it was. Like it seemed to have started in the euro dollar system, and like something needed to happen because it looked like as per usual of most problems financially, looks like the house of cards was about to collapse. You know what I mean? Like all it take we've seen it happen a few times, right? Like so that seems to be the number one reason why he kind of like pulled back on everybody because it was gonna blow up in his face more or less. Like that was the case I heard made there, and I mean I'm not into the repo markets or the bond markets, but
No,
uh,
who can do that? And
but those
treasury
big boys
yields and
are, and like they live and die off of like 2% spreads on billions of dollars. So like a little fluctuation in those segments goes, it's a big ripple, and so it'll be interesting to see if he gets what he wants. Like if that is one of his short term goals, which is getting the interest rate down so that he can renegotiate the debt at a better rate. So I
no,
don't know
but you
what.
know what? Wow, here's the problem. Before I was a little more optimistic about Trump and his team of geniuses having a plan and his threats and understanding that the multiplex idea that tariff threats and chaos can be a leverage, can also be a revenue generator, and can also be a negotiating tactic. But it does seem like he's falling apart. Uh, that's what it seems like to me. That his plan is falling apart, and I thought there seemed to be more of I don't know. I had more faith in them initially. Now I'm
Well,
losing faith a little bit.
here's what I will say. I think like from like a backup plan for him, like where we're at now, so to say. Let's say that's the case. Like it did fall apart. Even pumping the brakes and have 90 days, like he does now have that trade token. So if he does want to go to say Denmark and have a serious conversation about Greenland, or to Canada and have a serious conversation about oil and minerals and freer
But
trade and
don't but
whatever,
that, but
right?
don't you think though? But don't you think with this keeps pulling back, pulling back, pulling back? Like I don't know. It's like the guy, the lunch bully says, "I'm going to take your lunch money every day, and if you don't have it tomorrow, you're going to punch in the nose." And
No,
then
no,
you
no.
keep
The
saying,
fact that he's still like super tough with China, who's like the actual lunch bully. They've been the lunch bully. So like now he's beating up the one person that kind of needed to beat up, and everybody's about to get threatened once he's done with this guy. That's kind of the optics now that maybe he could spin it into. You know what I mean?
See, but I find it's funny, like any of his, of course, no matter what he does or what the markets respond or these black swan events, his critics will find a reason why, like, oh, that's part of the master plan. Or no, I mean his supporters, that that's part of the
Yeah,
master plan. His critics will find a reason why it's
great.
chaos and pandemonium. And
Yeah.
before I had a little more faith that there was a plan. I'm just saying I'm getting to the point of like maybe there was a plan and
Perhaps,
it's well,
perhaps
I think there, of course, there was always a plan. I still don't debate that. But did he let his emotions get in the way? We're going to see who's, pissing contest with China, or does he have knowledge that we don't have? Like, I
well,
keep
we're hoping he
hearing,
does. We're hoping he does. He's the friggin' president of the United States. I hope he has something we don't have.
yeah,
Well, what I would say, it's like if you think of his first term, he kind of was like sideswiped by the bureaucratic deep state. And now maybe this time he's being like sideswiped by the international financial state, who's just kind of like, I don't know what you think you're doing, but that's boom, we're selling bonds, like we're selling treasuries, and like it's not gonna be good. Just now the Fed's gonna have to buy them, and then it's just gonna be inflation galore, and you're gonna look like a fool. So I think maybe he kind of got a little wake up call on like, oh crap, okay, maybe I'm not the biggest stick in the room.
no, but you'd have to think like I mean, I would think that if you had those guys around you that he's got around him, that you would know that. You would almost think you would know any eventuality.
You are right. You are right. Well, you would hope so, right? You would hope. Like, give me the 30 outcomes. What's the 1% thing that could happen again that's terrible? Tell me that again, Bill. Yeah. You would hope that he's got
Yeah,
that guy.
and you have in some regards an unlimited budget. So when you have the 1% weird problem, you can farm it out to somebody to be just on that. And then if that goes down, you go like, hey Terry, 3 levels down, you had a contingency ideas and put that information together for this very eventuality. I would
Well, I
think.
think it sounds like that's what they did, and they were like, "I'll tell you what, bud, this is causing chaos everywhere. How about you just focus on the bully, and like the one guy that is actually kind of already fought back, and he's like, okay, that sounds reasonable, and we'll give everybody else a little break. We'll give them 3 months, and maybe we'll bring these back." And maybe in 3 months there'll be a new problem, and we'll be like, okay, we're going to be nice and not bring these back. So it's another value he's created. Like in 3 months' time, let's say there's like tornadoes everywhere or something, and look how great Trump is. Like he gave everybody another 90 days because we got tornadoes everywhere. Like he's a hero. Again, all from thin air. Like it could be.
No,
Again,
for sure.
I'm trying to
But I mean,
propagate an idea here.
that trick's going to get old.
Yeah, the third time he does it. 180 days.
So, well, we've already done it like eight times.
Well, I think for us, like, I don't know, I think a lot of other countries have gone to meet with him to kind of get something in stone before the 90 days is up regardless.
Well,
So
they say 70, 75 countries have extended the desire to talk.
one of the points I heard was like some of his metrics are just like not cool because it's kind of like, yeah, Cambodia would love to buy more stuff from America, but the average yearly income is $2,300. So like,
No,
sorry,
but there's a
Trump,
lot,
like,
but there's a lot of other ways for countries to like.
exactly.
Cambodia needs guns for their
No, 100%. But maybe
their
they don't need
military.
as much guns to equal out whatever the other thing is. Like for every
No,
rice we sell, we gotta buy a bullet.
yeah, but also let's say if you wanted to, because I heard it explained like this: if you're going to join America is setting up a coalition, right? And then it's trying to push the point that you need to choose. And if you're going to be under the military umbrella of the United States, maybe you need to pay a few tariffs to do just for the privilege of not only doing business with the United States, but being under its protective arm. So Cambodia, I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe they buy their guns from
I get what you're saying.
somebody.
First off,
So they
definitely
buy
wouldn't
guns.
buy
But
them.
again,
It would make them-
right, again, but guns is only one example. But then maybe Cambodia runs all its government software on Chinese company Microsoft as opposed to American. Maybe it buys its liquid natural gas or other energy. Now it's buying it from some other place, but it can equalize because it's now going to buy that from American sourced oil or something or
No, and that's
energy.
where I still think there is a bit of the plan's not over. I don't think it's over. I think it's just on.
No, nor do I. I think again, it's not tariffs have become a big word in Trump's mind that covers lots of things, like the exact thing we're talking about. It's also we're offering
Trade.
protection, we're
Yeah.
offering trade, blah blah. There's a lot of facets to it that all need to be negotiated. I get that, but I'm just having. It's hard to be confident that this is well thought out. I agree it needs to happen, but we'll see what
I
happens.
think it's such a big thing that like it was inevitable something was going to happen that you weren't expecting. Like there's so many moving parts, when America enacts that much of a change all across the world. You know what I mean? Like there was something was going to break, and I think it's something to do with the banks in Europe or something like that didn't have enough money and were all selling bonds. I don't know. It looked like some sort of mess happened there, where it basically, from what I gather, the Fed was going to have to be the buyer of last resort, and it was just going to be a mess. And I think it was going to be mad inflation in area, and then which in turn just hurts the little person, which is not what Trump wanted to do. He didn't want to hurt the common person. So hopefully it's more thought out, whatever he comes back with. But I think like anything, like I think after our election, we're going to go to and try and get something negotiated within a month, if not I would assume, like, if we show up on the Monday, I would assume by the maybe like 2 Fridays, they should have it figured out, ironed out.
Well,
2 weeks.
yeah, but I mean, I don't. Yeah, I guess it could happen quickly. I suppose. I mean, on paper, anyways. But I mean, I don't see the sentiment healing taking a long time for Canadians to stop this anti-Trump barking.
It's not going to stop, and it doesn't. Again, it's the bee's nest next to the bear cave, so it's like the bees can get mad all they want, like, but the bear can crush the beehive whenever it wants. It likes
Yeah.
that honey though, so we like it's like
Yeah. Well, the move is Greenland first, I guess. Like you said before, you said that if he can take Greenland in some sort of way with paperwork and charm and promises and a couple of bucks here and a buck there, that will indicate what's probably potentially in our future.
I don't think so. I think Greenland's going to get the sweeter end. Like I can see everybody in Greenland with a new Tesla.
Oh yeah, definitely. We won't be that sweet for us.
He won't butter our bread, but if he just gives us the tax code, and he's talking about no income tax under 150, let's dance.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Well, I guess that's as good a place as any to leave. You still have, to recap, I guess you still have hope and faith in Pierre. We still have a little hope and faith that even though there might be some bumps in the road, Trump's plan to restructure global trade and take away China's unfair trade practices is in full effect. And Canada is somehow mixed up in that too.
I would say I don't have faith in Pierre as much as I have no faith in Carney. And I have faith that he's going to fumble every time he gets seen in front of the camera. It's proven me right ever since I've said it 2 weeks ago on here. Maybe they're going to fill him full of some of that Biden Adderall medication, and he's just going to be a whole new man come Monday. Who knows? Chatty Mark.
I saw an article today, and it was like, who is whatever Carney's wife, Bianca, or whatever her name is?
Yeah. Isn't she an economist or something?
Yeah, well, I didn't read the article. I didn't care who she was, but
They met in school. Yeah.
Yeah, my point was that there's a big push to like these people.
Humanize them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the last thing we want. We want anybody to humanize them.
All right. Well, I'll see you next week, Jace. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Absolutely. See you later.
Wow!